Why is it that there are just some days where I look extra pale? Ugh, got that lockdown tan. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Morning Bible. It's wonderful to have you. We are once again in Luke chapter 12 today. Start of a new week. Well, kind of. It's Tuesday for you. It's Monday for me, so it very much feels like the start of a new week. So let's jump into it. It's a good passage today. I'm really excited. We're going to try and do a couple, but we'll see how that goes time-wise. So let's go straight in. Chapter 12, verse 4. It says, this is Jesus talking, of course. It says, "I tell you, my friends, do not fear those who kill the body, and after that have nothing more they can do. But I will warn you whom to fear. Fear him who, after he has killed, has authority to cast into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies, and not one of them is forgotten before God? Why then even the hairs on your head are all numbered? Fear not, you are of more value than many sparrows." So, what is that passage saying? Well, it's kind of going down 2 routes. It's 2 different parts of the passage, so we'll split it. We'll do the first part for now. It's talking about how you should fear God, basically. Jesus says, "I tell you, my friends, do not fear those who kill the body, and after that have nothing that they can do." So Jesus is saying, look, don't be afraid of people. Don't be afraid of the guys around you. Don't be afraid of whoever it may be, soldiers, your enemies, people on the earth. Because at the end of the day, what's the worst they can do? They can kill you. And after you're dead, they've got nothing left. They've got nothing left to do with you. You're gone. They don't have power beyond that point. Which I know, like, being killed is still something that we're all like, I don't want to be killed. But because of what Jesus has done, because of who God is, we have a whole life waiting for us beyond our human life. And so death, while it is big and scary and horrible, isn't actually that bad in the grand scheme of everything that God's got planned for the rest of time. So Jesus is essentially saying, look, they may kill you, and that may feel scary to you, but at the end of the day, that's all that they can do. So don't be afraid of them. But then Jesus goes on to say something that I think in our modern culture, even within the church today, we don't quite have this perception of God, where Jesus says, "I will warn you whom to fear. Fear him who, after he has killed, has authority to cast into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him." So Jesus is saying very clearly, fear God. God has the authority not just to kill you, but to throw you into the fires of hell, which is like whoa, that's a big warning, because we're so used to sort of seeing this fluffy image of God where God is super loving and caring and kind, and would never hurt a hair on our head. And it's like that, look, those things are true. God is really loving, and we'll go on to the next part of this passage where it talks about that. But God is a just God at the end of the day. He is a God of justice. He's a God of judgment. It's why the universe works, We talk about, why can God allow suffering? Why can God allow evil? It's like, well, it's not forever, because God's going to come down and bring judgment, and he's going to bring justice for all the things. He's going to right all the wrongs, and he's going to create a new creation where everything is good and right. And so for God to have justice, that means there has to be some form of punishment for things that are wrong, for things that are bad. So that means, hell exists. Being thrown into the fires of hell is a real thing. So Jesus is saying, look, be afraid of that. Don't try and scrub that part of God out of your mind. Be aware of that. Be afraid of that. Don't let yourself, become complacent with the idea that, oh, God will just forgive me no matter what I do. No. Like, God will, but you need to have this awareness of what awaits you if you turn away from him, and if you do wrong, and if you do badly. There is this ultimate judgment there. And so what's the second part of this passage saying? Well, it sort of turns it round to remind us of how good God is and how loving God is towards us, and how this warning of hell, while it is big and scary, and it should be big and scary, isn't all that God has planned for us. It isn't like hell or you just get away with it. It's like, no, God wants this for you, but this is what happens if you fall away. So the next part of the passage says, "Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies, and not one of them is forgotten before God? Why, even the hairs on your head are all numbered. Fear not, you are of more value than many sparrows. So that's your bit of encouragement for today. You're worth more than a lot of sparrows, than many sparrows. No matter how you're feeling right now, just know that if you had a whole group of sparrows together, you're worth more than them. So that's good, especially because sparrows are actually quite nice little birds. But God, it's essentially, Jesus is saying here that, look, 5 sparrows are sold for 2 pennies, and not one of them is forgotten before God. So Jesus is saying, look, this is a small thing, this is a cheap thing. Sparrows are sold for cheap. 5 of them are sold for 2 pennies. They're sold for very cheap. But I just realised the pun there with cheap, but we'll move past that. God doesn't let any of that just slip by him. He doesn't not notice that. He doesn't ignore that. He sees that. He knows the value of these sparrows. He knows these 5 sparrows. He knows where they're going. And then Jesus takes it a step further. He says, even the hairs on your head are all numbered. So something that we can't know, how are you supposed to know how many hairs are on your head? God knows that. God has them all counted. He knows exactly how many hairs are on your head. Such a small, seemingly insignificant detail of our lives, something that we don't know about ourselves. God knows, and he knows that for every single one of us. And for some of us that might be quite easy because there might be no hairs on our head, but for some of us there'll be quite a lot, and so that is quite a big, that's a big thing for God to know, and a really small thing for God to know at the same time. And so why does Jesus tell us this? Well, he's essentially saying you're more valued than many sparrows. God knows the tiny things, and he cares about the tiny details, and you're not a tiny detail. You're important in God's eyes. You're a big deal in God's eyes. Even though you're a really small little human on this planet that's in huge amounts of space and all the rest of it, and God's in charge of all of that, and he's moving the planets and all the rest of it, God still knows each hair on your head and still cares about you. And so the first part of the passage is saying, be afraid of being thrown into the fires of hell, and that's a real thing. That's a real scary thing. But the second part is saying, look, you have a God who knows this much about you and who loves you enough to know these tiny details about you. And so that God is not going to want to throw you into the fires of hell. He's going to want to save you. He's going to want to have you with him. He's going to want to build his kingdom with you, to have you as part of his plan. And so it's a warning, but also an encouragement, also a promise that you have this relationship with God. You just turn to him, you just welcome him into your life, you love him, you follow his ways, and the threat of the fires of hell will be far away from you. You still have to fear that, but you don't have to fear that it's coming to you, because you have a God who loves you and who rescues you from these things. It's just a really nice little encouragement. We were going to do the next bit as well, but I reckon we'll just leave it there for today. Have a short little encouragement. Good little passage. I like it a lot. Just remember, you're worth more than many, many sparrows. Cool. I need to go and climb my stairs a bunch of times. I'm doing a charity thing. I'll be posting something about that on Facebook to talk about it. But yeah, that's going to be my day. So I hope you have a good one as well, and I will see you all tomorrow. Much love. Bye bye bye.